Hey guys, welcome back to more entitled family drama stories. In this video, my 45-year-old entitled sister cried to my mom because she wanted my house for free, claiming that I don't deserve it. Let's dive right into the video to see what happened. The first one starts like this. It's always sad when a relative passes away. In my case, it was long expected as my grandma was ancient, so ancient that the whole family were convinced that she was never gonna pass away and she had been keeping the secret of immortality to herself. I, male 38, was grandma's favorite, mostly because I was no one else's. My mother and my father absolutely adored my older sister. She got to have everything she wanted and all she had to do was just ask. If I wanted anything, I would have to beg and plead until I was blue in the face. I will always remember the day I realized I was not the favorite child. It had been building up over a number of years, particularly around Christmas and birthdays. Back then, I had really wanted a game console, first a Commodore, then the Amiga, Atari, NES, SNES, but I would never get them. That was about the time I realized that I did not get anything because my sister, who always asked for the most ridiculous expensive toys, would always get what she wanted instead. All of it. Needless to say, I grew distant from my parents and my sister. I never expected anything from them and worked to get the things I wanted for myself. I don't know how I never noticed that before. My parents would ask my sister what she wanted for birthdays and Christmas, but they never asked me. I would always have to tell them, only to then be ignored. The only person to see this was my grandma, and she was always someone I could rely on until she got super senile and had to go into her home, but still, I visited her every day. When she passed, she left most of her possessions to her daughter, my mother, some choice stuff for my dad and other stuff split between her surviving kin. I got her old house. Now, this was no small house, it was a huge 6-bedroom, 4-acre manor house. I could not believe it, I never felt so lucky before. I was so sure that my grandma had sold the house so she could stay at the most fancy retirement home in the state, but apparently not, and I have no idea how I could have missed that huge detail. I wish you could have seen my sister's face when the lawyer read out grandma's will. It looked like her jaw was gonna pop right off its hinges. She was so flabbergasted that she forgot how to speak and everything. Even mom and dad couldn't believe that grandma had left me the house and not my sister, the one who usually got everything. My sister screamed that I don't deserve the house and that it should be given to her. She was crying at this point and begged my mom and father to do something about it. Then she stormed out the reading, swearing that she was gonna get that house if it was the last thing she ever did, and trust me, she tried everything. At first she would call me up and collar me in the middle of the street, waterworks on full display, trying to guilt me into letting her have the house. I don't know how she thought that was gonna work. It's not like she was short of anything, and even if she was, she only needed to ask mom and dad and they would give over both their kidneys if she just asked for it. She kept telling me that her rent was going up, she couldn't afford groceries, she was getting kicked out of her tenement and had nowhere to live. To which I just replied, tell dad your rent went up and he will give you a bigger allowance. Don't spend all your money at the club and you can afford groceries. Mom will sort you out somewhere else to live. She fumed at me, but I could see through her manipulations that I'd been privy to them since we were kids and grown quite immune to her emotional blackmailing. After about a month of her trying to guilt me into giving her the house, it finally stopped and I thought it was done with. But then came a knock on my door, and when I answered, mom and dad stood there, glaring at me with the sternest faces possible. Without even waiting for me to invite them in, they waltzed into my home and absently started inspecting the state of the place. They go on to tell me that they had a call from my sister who was in hysterics because I was being selfish. I was rather shocked but not at all surprised to hear this. They tell me that I should do the right thing and let my sister have the house. To which I just told them to leave. Ain't no way that I'm going against my grandma's wishes. On the way out they tell me that I should probably look for a lawyer because they are gonna contest the will. I was honestly disgusted by this behavior. What a way to respect your own mother's desires in her passing. I take it as an empty threat until I get the letter dropped in my mailbox. Luckily, I have a pretty decent lawyer who knows what he's doing, and he tells me that there's no way that he can actually contest the inheritance. My grandma had written it out long before she started losing her mind, and there was even a letter declaring that my parents were selfish individuals and should not be allowed anywhere near her inheritance. Yet again, another thing I didn't know about and was quite surprised about. Me and grandma were close, but the old dog had some pretty sneaky tricks. Things did not stop there though. My parents and my sister were not ready to give up and resorted to base harassment tactics. I got something like 20 odd voicemails a day from all three of them demanding that I hand the house over or I would be disowned. Thing is, I had pretty much already disowned them, so it was not much of a threat, but that didn't mean that I wasn't annoyed by how much they kept pestering me about it, so I came up with a devious plan of my own. It was so sneaky, I felt like a master villain in a super sleuth movie or something. I ever cackled to myself several times in the middle of the night as I put the plan into motion. It took a few months to get everything in place. Months spent having to put up with the empty threats and harassment of my immediate family, but it would be all worth it in the end. Once everything was set up, I waited for my sister to call, which did not take long whatsoever. Literally, as I sat enjoying my cornflakes, my phone burst. I picked up waiting for the yelling on how selfish I was to die down, and I told my sister I was done with it, she could have the house. I would meet her there to give her the keys. About an hour later, I stood outside the house and my sister didn't even acknowledge the fact that the car I was stood beside was not mine. It did not matter, I was counting on her being so self-absorbed not to notice. She demanded the keys and I handed them over. I didn't hang about, I didn't want to get caught up in what was gonna happen next. So I went to my car, which was still parked up on the road, and I waited. At first I was starting to think the plan had not worked. After an hour of waiting, I could hear the sirens and watched as 2 cop cars pulled into the driveway of my grandma's old house. The grin I had on my face was so big. Half an hour later, the cop cars pull out of the house and my sister in the back of one, absolutely red-faced. I made sure she sees me and oh my god, the rage on her face brightens my day anytime I feel down. I had in fact sold the house the week before. Waited for the super rich family who bought it to move in and get settled, and then let my sister think that I was giving her the house. I might have gotten into a little trouble for not handing over every spare key that I had, but not as much trouble as my sister got for basically breaking and entering, causing duress and, well, defecating in the kitchen sink. That last one took me a little by surprise, as much as it took that family of a 6-year-old boy by surprise. I used the money I made selling the house to relocate to a happier, better place. I have not spoken to my parents since. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story titled, Am I the A-hole for leaving a note on my neighbor's doorstep about his screaming children? And by the way, if you've enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video, leave a comment and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much in advance. I have lived in the same apartment building for about 5 years, and throughout my time here, I've had many neighbors come and go and I've never had any noise issues. However, last year, a new neighbor moved in 3 units down. He is about 40 and has 3 children under the age of 4. For months, I've listened to his children scream and cry all day long, whether it be in his apartment or in the hallway. At first I tried to ignore the behavior as I felt bad. It appeared he was a newly single father and was struggling. However, as time went on, it became clear that he just straight up lets his kids behave however they want. For example, when they shriek at the top of their lungs in the hallway and right outside my door, he never says, "Shh, let's be quiet," or anything at all. He just lets it happen without a peep. Additionally, I've come to realize the frequency and the volume of the screaming, crying and shrieking is way beyond what's normal. I would venture to say that I hear anywhere from 10 to 15 full-on tantrums every single day, all of which are ear-piercingly loud. And like I said, he does not say or do anything about these tantrums. It's now at the point where I find myself frustrated and annoyed in my own home all the time. Right now, I'm working on a paper in my apartment and I cannot even concentrate because all I can hear are his children. Because of this, I wrote a note, a polite note, and left it on his doorstep. Essentially, my note said that I sympathized with him, but the noise is just out of control. I also stressed that I wanted to confront him directly first. I realized that sounds hypocritical since I left an anonymous note rather than going straight to management. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for leaving this note? And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious what you think about this. If you would have been an OP spot here, would you have also left an anonymous note or would you have just confronted him directly? Let me know in the comments. Should I have handled it differently? Relevant comments, you're the a-hole. What do you think he's going to do with 3 children under 4? Spend the day elsewhere? Just buy earplugs. I don't know, maybe tell his child to be quiet when she's shrieking in the hallway at the top of her lungs for no reason. and apologized to all the neighbors who opened their doors to see what the commotion was about. Well, you assume he hasn't tried to quiet his kids down and is also unaware of their screaming. Considering that he wears headphones all day while he is gaming, no, I don't think he has the pleasure of hearing them scream all day like the rest of us do. How the hell do you know? Well, because he told my husband that he's an avid gamer and games pretty much all day long. He is also a tech geek and retired, and he sold some sort of major software. Another person said, "You're the a-hole, what do you think your note will accomplish? Tantrums are normal." According to professionals, it's actually not normal for children to have that many tantrums in a 24-hour time span. A child's behavior has a direct relationship with their environment and how they are parented. It's not something that is 100% dependent on their natural temperament. OP is then voted NTA, but the mods removed the post fairly quickly, so it's difficult to say if that judgment would have stayed the same. And now an update to the story. So after reading the comments on my original post, I decided to remove the note before my neighbor saw it. I took what some of you said into consideration. Perhaps I just needed to be more patient. I decided if the noise issue escalated, then I would do something. Otherwise, I would just suck it up and use headphones like some of you advised. Well, today, his children screamed and shrieked 4 more times within a 1-hour period in the hallway. This was right by my door, about 2 feet away from my apartment. The 4th time it happened, I opened my door and said, "Please don't scream in the hallway, guys." Once I said this, he told me that his kids are allowed to scream in the hallway or anywhere else in the building that they feel like. I told him that actually no, they are not, according to our lease. He then told me to just suck it up and to contact management and to not talk to him. After our conversation, he told all 3 of his kids, "You can be as loud as you want in here," and then shot me a nasty look and proceeded to walk to the stairs. Once he said that, all 3 kids started squealing as loud as possible on purpose. I sent management an email and they are talking to him first thing in the morning. I know some of you suggested I do this in the first place, and I wish I did. Another update. So I just went down to the management office to follow up with the manager, and she said she had a meeting set for today at 1 PM with the resident. She immediately contacted him when I emailed her last night. But then today he emailed her saying that he could no longer make the 1 PM meeting and asked why he had to come down. He's in his apartment right now doing nothing because he doesn't work. She told him that he is in violation of his lease and it's best if he comes down. Apparently he didn't reply to her. She told me that if he doesn't come down to meet with her, she is going to draft an official lease violation letter and begin the process of eviction. I was blown away. She's a great manager. She told me that his reaction, telling me that his kids are allowed to yell and telling the kids to keep yelling, is the reason for how she is handling this, not purely the noise complaint. She said she is horrified and disgusted that somebody would handle the situation this way. Her and I both agreed that it was strange that he would encourage me to not speak to him and to just contact management rather than just simply telling his kids shh and appreciating that I said something to him directly. Another update to the story. So after I talked with management, I saw my neighbor bring his children to their mother's house. He has been in his apartment alone for the last few days and has not come out. He has all the blinds drawn. He posted the following status on social media saying, "I'm the perfect success in all areas of life. My husband follows him, which is how I know this." I think he's pretending that he's not home to avoid both myself and management. I don't know what to make of it and I don't plan on getting involved. And then some comments said, "My personal theory is that up until this year, he has never had to take care of his kids. A nanny has, so parenting is really new to him and he has no clue as to what's normal and what's not. I think he likes making his kids happy, so he just never says no or even stop. I don't think he has a clue what he's doing. A few weeks ago, he was at the pool with the kids and they were all shrieking and he seemed so oblivious that it was a problem. It wasn't until he saw other parents saying stop yelling to their own kids that it seemed to click in his head and they abruptly left the pool. I don't know why he couldn't translate that experience into maybe my kids should not yell in the hallway. More about the neighbor. My neighbor in general is friendly-ish but really awkward. He's not a talkative guy and avoids social interaction. For example, if somebody takes the elevator, he starts walking in the other direction towards the stairs. However, sometimes he is stuck socializing when he clearly doesn't want to, since we live in an apartment building. My husband is extremely outgoing and social, me not so much, so he's been able to have quite a few conversations with him over the past year. I only had an actual conversation with him once. I never assumed he would react the way he did. If anything, he seemed like the type who would be meek and embarrassed when confronted. So I was surprised by his reaction, as was my husband. In addition to his post about being perfect, he made another post saying that overthinking is a disease. I honestly think the guy's just really socially inept. One last note from OP, this was 4 days ago, but in my opinion was more of a comment on the situation and not an update, so I'm just including it here. I'm assuming management got in contact with him, either in person over email or via paper notice, and notified him that he violated his lease and that he needs to fix the issue, or else he'll be evicted. And I'm assuming he said okay, but I don't know for sure. I have not heard his kids scream in the hallway since the incident, which is relieving. However, the other day we were both in the hallway at the same time. He had taken the stairs and I had taken the elevator and made direct eye contact. It was so awkward. Neither of us said anything, just unlocked our apartment doors in silence. Although when he opened his door, his kids were screaming at the top of their lungs inside. I just laughed to myself and went inside. He can deal with the screaming in his apartment all he wants. I'm just happy I don't have to hear it in my hallway anymore, hopefully. And now we will move on to the Am I the A-hole story, complete with an update. My parents have always favored my younger brother. I was by no means unloved, but it was blatantly obvious who they cared about more. I worked a part-time job to get my first car, but my brother got one as a present. It was not new, but it was much newer than my car. It was the same with just about anything else, like clothes, video games and cell phones. And well, I'm 18 and I'm taking a gap year before community college to work a full-time job and save money for tuition. But a while back, I heard my parents talking about how much they were going to pay for my brother's tuition. I secretly recorded the conversation from around the corner and then came out asking my parents why they were gonna pay for my brother's college but not mine. They didn't notice my phone was recording and just said that my brother needs more help. I asked how so, when I was not getting any sort of scholarship and he likely wouldn't either. Then I asked a few more questions about why things have always been this way. They got mad and my dad told me that perhaps it's time I moved out because they are sick of keeping a roof over my head. I pointed out I pay rent, but they didn't care. I left the room and in a fit of rage uploaded the video to 2 different social medias I have and ranted about how this is how my parents have always been to me. Well, a few hours later, my parents were pounding at my door. My dad was screaming at me how I made them look bad, and we fought some more and they left the room fuming. My grandparents contacted me later and said they were appalled and then came to visit with a lot of the family the next day. There was a huge family intervention and my parents were made to sit on the couch and look at their feet while being told off. It was then that I found out that they'd been receiving money for years from my grandparents to help with family expenses. My brother looked like he didn't know what to do, so he sided with the rest of the family and said he has noticed how I'm treated as well. My parents gave me a huge apology that sounded forced. My grandparents have offered that I come live with them soon and will cut off the monthly payments to my parents. My father told me I should have never told the rest of the family, and now they won't talk to me and my mom has been crying for days. So I'm starting to wonder if I went too far. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for exposing my parents' favoritism? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this story in the comments. Was OP the a-hole here for exposing his parents? Or not? Let me know. Comment number 1, not the a-hole, don't feel bad for those crocodile tears. They are not sad that they treated you poorly and favored one kid over the other. They are sad that they are being cut off from further financial help and that their crappy actions were exposed. They made their bed and now they can lay in it. Go live with your grandparents, save your money and get your education. I'm glad you have family members that will care for you for the way your parents should have been caring for you, but chose not to. Comment number 2, in my opinion, not the a-hole, and hearing that your grandparents sent your parents money makes it even more so. They deserve to know that their money was not being used properly and for what they intended / how they intended. You are not the a-hole because your parents are upset that they have to face consequences. Update, I decided to go ahead and call my grandparents to accept their offer to move in. During the phone call, I asked them why there was monthly payments being sent to my parents. Turns out my parents were living beyond their means for a while because my mom quit her job to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. My grandparents decided to help out by sending them money monthly to help with my parents' mortgage and also to set aside some of that money for college savings for both my brother and I that was to be split evenly. Turns out my parents only planned to put that savings towards my brother's college, and that's also how they bought his car as well. So from now on my parents are on their own financially. Likely my mom will have to go back to work to help my dad keep up the mortgage. I confronted my parents and asked whether I've always treated my brother as the favorite, and then asked if there was something I needed to know. It turns out there was nothing, literally nothing. I'm not an affair baby, not even an unplanned pregnancy, they just liked my brother more. I was mad as hell and we argued a lot before I left the room because I had enough. My grandparents showed up on Saturday with a moving truck and my parents were floored when we started bringing in boxes to pack. My father got in our way and I reminded him how he said that I should move out, so I am. My mother cried some more and said that my father was just angry in the moment when he said, and they had been counting on my rent money to help with my brother's college fund. I asked if that meant that he would never have had to pay rent like I did when he turns 18. My father then said that since I was taking a gap year to work, then my rent money could have helped my brother. Which means they never intended for him to get a job while going to college. My grandpa was enraged and confronted my father and saying that he raised him better than this. He chewed him out, saying he's never been more disappointed in him and they will no longer receiving any more financial support. Then said that he would disown them both if they ever tried to retaliate against me for exposing them. My father backed down and neither he nor my mom said another word to me. I had a bit of an awkward conversation with my brother as we said our goodbyes to each other, and that was it. I just got in my car, waved and drove off. I'm now fully moved into my new room at my grandparents' house. It's a little smaller but nice and my grandparents are very welcoming. I'm gonna keep working hard to move forward from here and I appreciate everyone's support. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much and I will see you again tomorrow.